IDC Directions. My name is Gonçalo Gaiolas, and I'm the Vice President of Product at Outsystems. It is a pleasure to be here today. And today I'm here to talk about one of today's superpowers for organizations, digital productivity for a modern world. But before we do that, let us start with a simple thought experiment. What would you say if I showed you this chart? Doesn't have any axes. What does it mean for you? I've gotten many different answers. The most recent one is the number of kilos people got during Corona times. But what if I told you that we were here? Does that give you a hint? This chart actually represents a very important thing, the rate of change, how the world is changing around us. And a while ago, some people did a thought experiment that I thought was fantastic. What would happen if we were to take somebody that lived 200 years ago, and we were teletransport this person to today? What would happen at that point in time? The answer might surprise you because very likely, because of the massive change that has happened, this person would die within a few hours. Just think through that. How crazy is that? That it is hard for somebody to absorb change if it happens in a very short amount of time. The interesting thing as well is that if this person took the exact same approach and teletransported somebody from the 1600s to the 1800s, it would be hard, but at the same time, this person would probably not die. It would be a very uncomfortable experience, but it would not die. And what this tells us is that not only change is big, but the rate at which change is happening is really accelerating exponentially. And as human beings, we're not very good with exponentials. We're very good with linear thinking. We're not very good at handling exponentials. But are we all going through this in the same way? Or are some of us maybe adapting better? Is accelerating change actually affecting everyone equally or not? And the answer is that I think we've all seen this, specifically 2020. 2020 has been sort of a banner year for companies that are good with change. We know that change is not affecting everyone equally. Namely, what we call the unicorn club, the digital native companies, have really not been affected as much. If you look at this chart, this is a representation of companies going into a $1 billion plus valuation, and it's clearly accelerating. And the one thing that all of these companies have in common is that they're very, very good at mastering digital urgency. They take control of digital urgency. And what does that mean? What does that mean to take control of digital urgency? For one, these companies really understand that the customer experience, the thing that makes the most important impact in your business today, is always evolving. And they design entire systems, entire organizations around evolving customer experiences. But together with the customer experience, you have to be very fast and continuous in adapting. Business models, everything on your operations, just your business needs to change. And these companies just excel at doing that. They are very, very good digitally. They're very, very good at adapting to all of these things. Now, all of this change in a modern world is predicated on a simple idea that you need modern technology architectures. The two things are indistinguishable. You cannot change fast enough in today's world unless you are operating on top of strong digital and technological platforms that allow for constant change, for that urgency to change next week, tomorrow, in the next hour. And some of these things, these platforms, they're designed, they still don't operate themselves. So the final thing that these companies are very good at is that they figured out ways to tap into diverse top talent pools, to actually get collaboration across the business and technology. The lines are blurring. The lines are clearly blurring across the board. And so think about these four things. On the one hand, you have the CEO agenda, making sure that your customers have a differentiated experience and that your business changes and is resilient to the massive amounts of change that are happening. On the other hand, you have the CTO or the CIO agenda. The technology needs to be modern. We all know how that is hard. You need to access these diverse talent pools and wide collaboration networks. But how do you do that? What are we've talked, there are conferences, and in this conference we're talking about many, many ways of doing that. Well, I'm here today with a simple proposition. It's a simple future-looking proposition that you need what we call 100 times digital productivity. And the reason it's 100 times is because it's not just sufficient to be incrementally better, just a tiny little bit better. You know, we've been incremental, linear. We've been linear over the times. But today, we don't live in a linear world. We live in an exponential world. And I don't want to drain that idea, but we see that all around us. Just think through the last 6 months, the amount of change that happened in the world, and how digital is actually a superpower that you have to master. Now, when we think through this, and at Outsystems, we are constantly focusing on getting our customers to be 100 times more productive than they are today from a digital perspective. But if you extend out as much as your eye can see, and if you think through the next few years, let's think through what are some of the characteristics that digital productivity needs to have for the future, for the modern company. For one, for sure it needs to be inclusive. What I mean by inclusive, and we will touch more on that, is that it's no longer the realm of specialists. It's no longer the realm of a uniform set of people. You need to be able to tap into the different talent pools within and outside of your organization. You need to have different levels and types of skill sets collaborating. It's not a niche thing anymore. Digital is not niche anymore. The second thing is that it needs to be integrated. This is key. Because when we talk about digital, a lot of the times what we see is that our customers, they're thinking about local optimizations. They're focusing on optimizing a single process or a single part of the company, or actually the company as a whole. But what does that still work in a networked world? How does that play out in a scenario where everything is more interdependent than ever? And finally, it needs to be intelligent. You know, it can't just be that productivity, that automation that takes the exact same thing you've done using the exact same tools and makes it better. It needs to be intelligent. So let's deep dive into each one of these things and leave you with some questions that you can ponder on your own time and maybe look out when you're looking around the world or seeing some of the other sessions, the great sessions here at IDC. So the first question around inclusivity or being inclusive, the World Economic Forum expects that we will need 10 million new developers in the next few years. Just think through that. We have about 12 million developers in the world right now. We're going to need 10 more. Where are we getting these people? What technologies are they using? How are we actually going to make them productive? So let me leave you with a few questions. Are you accessing diverse talent pools? And by diverse, I mean all types of diversity. Skill sets, backgrounds, gender, race. How do you create a strategy and a technology capability that allows you to access these diverse talent pools? That's a key question that everybody's grappling with. The second is, are you meeting your customers where they are? It's no longer to be good at one channel, two channels. It's no longer good to be excellent at each channel individual. How are you allowing customers that operate with multiple platforms, that have different expectations, that are on other platforms to actually interact with you? Long gone are the days of I have a great website, a great portal, and a great mobile app, and we're good. Customer expectations have evolved. How are you evolving there? And the final, perhaps more contentious point is, do you have too many specialists? You see, the thing with specialists is that they tend to use whatever they're for specialists in for most of the problems they see around us. So we believe in a world where there is certainly a role for specialists, but you have to counterbalance that with an inclusive strategy that brings people from all around the business, from the business units, from technology, from old and new, male, female, or whatever identity you have, and you allow them to participate in the process of digital creation. So, inclusivity as an item for digital urgency is something we really think a lot about. Now, the second thing is integrated. And let me walk you through an example here real quick. So think of a company, or think of your typical company structured functionally around departments. What is the traditional thing we see companies do? Well, they optimize locally. What I mean by that is when you think through productivity, when you think about what you're doing, what all these companies are trying to do is they're trying to get productivity up within their departments. Now, the bad thing about this is that you're optimizing locally and not thinking globally. And what this does is that the feedback loops between these groups, in an interconnected world, and an integrated world, the feedback loops between these groups, they're really, really not helpful at all. And they get longer and longer and longer. And when they get longer, it's bad, right? So let me walk you through an example. This is one of my favorite companies right now, Figma. In case you don't know it, check it out. Figma is a company that essentially is revolutionizing how design is made around companies. And not just because they optimized on the design department. Because Figma, what they did was they allowed everybody to participate in the design process. They went and they created a web technology accessible to everybody, very, very easy, with great experience that allows product owners, CEOs, end users, everybody to participate in the design process. So essentially, they're taking the company as a whole and they're optimizing for the company as a whole. Great, great example. But what are some of the questions you have to ask yourself? Are you optimizing globally or locally within your company? Are you focused on a single department and losing sight of the entire picture? Do you have short feedback loops? Meaning, how do people get feedback on their work? What is the integration between the work streams that happen within your company? And finally, are you using third parties and partners and ecosystems to actually bring some of those, the third-party experience completely integrated into your productivity workflow? How do you do that? What's your strategy to be an open company? So just a few thoughts around integration. Very complex topic. Let's talk about intelligence. I want to show you a video. This is great. I don't know if you've been following the advancements in some of the artificial intelligence capabilities. In this example, what we're seeing is somebody typing in that they want to build a specific website. They're literally describing the typing. And Figma, same example, you can tell I love this company. What they're doing is behind the scenes, AI is generating a mock-up of that new site. It's sort of like human creativity. This is intelligence at a completely new level. And how are you leveraging some of these capabilities? Are you using them or not within your strategy? Do you have the right skill set to do that, right? So let's ask a few questions around it. What is your complete workflow in terms of getting from data? We all have a lot of data lying around. How do you get it to insight? How do you get it to become integrated in your business? Are you focusing on that in order to improving your productivity? How do you do continuous automation? One of the things we focus a lot at Outsystems is how do we help customers continuously find opportunities for automating intelligently, to easily bringing machine learning and AI into their businesses. How do you do that? How can you continuously do that without breaking the bank in terms of investment? And finally, do you have a modern sort of platform approach that allows you to take all of the things we've talked about, but namely intelligence, and embed it into your productivity processes? So, if you put it all together very simply, what we're talking about is achieving 100 times productivity. And when we talk to customers, we know it's a journey. It's a journey that starts with curiosity and aspirational and goes all the way to mastering it. And in the middle, you have local optimization, you have integrated companies that do a fantastic job across the board, and then you actually have the companies that they seem completely out of whack with everybody else. They're just 100 times better from a productivity perspective. And these are some of the characteristics. So, of course, they optimize globally. They make a deliberate, genuine effort to be inclusive and to bring in a diverse talent pool. They use automation and AI sparingly but correctly in the right place. And the combination of all these strategies is really sometimes hard to grasp, but it really gets them to that digital capability, that digital urgency, where in the matter of days, weeks, hours, minutes, they can adapt to the world around us. I'll leave you with a final question. How do you think about your own place in this world? Where would you be on this curve? How much more do you think you can move faster? And what are you doing to be able to get to that 100 times more productive state that you will need for sure the next decade to compete? So let's run a quick poll and see where the audience is. How much more do you think your company could be productive? And with that, I want to say thank you for having me and wish you a great conference. Thank you so much.